Hey folks, today we're going to take a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called Eternal Kings, and it's from designer Rolando Issa. Now, if you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page. You can do so by following the link in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Eternal Kings is a competitive game for 2 players. One player, or each player, is taking control of a fantasy army, and you're trying to take over the realm, destroying your opponent's king and their troops, but most importantly, taking out their king, and then taking over their section of the realm, having it all for yourself. Now, the interesting thing here is that while this is a unique card game with a lot of interesting things that it brings to the table, literally, it also has its basis in chess. Many of the movement restrictions on the units that you use, as well as, of course, the main goal, which is to take out the king, are from chess, but there's so many other things that are added on top of that Eternal Kings brings. And that rhymes. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at how the game is played with a prototype version of the game. So while some things that you see here may be in the final version, like some of the artwork and things like that, other things that you see may be different or absent, or more things might be added in the final version, so please just keep that in mind. But then we're going to come back and we will discuss it further. Eternal Kings is a competitive game for 2 players. Each player takes control of a different fantasy realm and its king in an attempt to be the dominant force in the land. The game itself uses many of the same elements as the classic game of chess, but with significant changes and additions. One important thing, among others, remains the same. The way to win is to eliminate your opponent's king. The first thing you'll do is lay out the game board. It will have 8x8 horizontal card-shaped spaces. Each player will have 2 sets of cards, an army and an ability deck. An army can only have 16 total creatures, no more than 2 of each normal unit, and only 1 of each restricted unit. Each unit corresponds to traditional chess pieces. You'll have to have 8 pawns, 2 rooks, 2 knights, 2 bishops, 1 queen, and 1 king. Each player lays out their creatures in the exact same way in the 2 rows of spaces closest to their side of the board, with each chess type being placed in a very specific space, for instance, all pawns being in the front row. They also must be on their unflipped side. I'll explain a little bit more about that later. Creatures have several stats and icons that are important for gameplay. In the top right corner is their chess piece designation, their attack value, their life points, and the type of discipline and how many points of it they possess to use on ability cards or on an ability they themselves possess, if any, as indicated in their text box. Think of this as a power source. Movement restrictions for each type of creature are the same as in chess. For instance, knights move in an L shape and jump other squares in their way. A rook can move any number of squares in a straight line, but only horizontally and vertically, and so on. Ability cards are held in hand until you're ready to use them. You'll shuffle your deck at the beginning of the game, but you may never draw cards until the game begins and abilities specifically allow you to. Creatures spend their discipline to use these cards, as indicated in the top right corner of the card. They have their own restrictions on when and how they can be played, and can give you access to powerful boosts to creatures' attacks or the ability to manipulate the battlefield to your advantage. They may be used and discarded right away, or linger in play. White cast cards must be used before or after the movement of a creature, while red cast abilities can be used at any time as they apply. Some cards can alter creatures so long as those cards are in play, and some structures can actually change the squares on the board. One player is designated as the white player, the other is the black player, just like in regular chess. Whoever is white takes the first turn. Every player's turn is divided into phases. The beginning phase is simply the phase in which creatures replenish any discipline that they may have spent in the prior turn, and when any effects that indicate upkeep on cards are triggered. Next is the movement phase. Each turn you can move and possibly attack with each creature that is able to do one or the other. If you're trying to attack, you must be able to move into your target space as part of its normal movement, and remember, each piece has its own specific movement. If you do this, your creature deals its attack value in damage to the target. If it's enough to reduce its life to 0, it's removed from the board, and your creature takes the space. If not, you must go back to where you started the move from, though the attacked creature does not gain back its life points until the end of turn. During all this, remember that creatures have their own inherent abilities. Sometimes these abilities require the creature to flip over as part of the cost. This can significantly downgrade a creature's abilities or discipline score, and they can only flip over again on another turn, with the use of another ability. When you're done with your movement and attacks, it's time for the end phase of your turn. End of turn triggers occur on your creature and abilities. You must discard down to 5 cards if you somehow end up with more than that, and any creature that lost life points but didn't die will regain those points now. Then, it's your opponent's turn to do just what you did. Ultimately, the goal is to destroy your opponent's king in order to win the game. That is Eternal Kings. Now, this isn't a review, and I'm definitely not here to review chess itself, but I'm just going to let you know I would never willingly play chess again. I've played it a few times. Not my cup of tea. I respect the game. It's not for me. I prefer games that have, thematic elements to them, high-quality components, artwork, things like that. And I believe I'm not the only one who feels that way. And yet, like I said, I respect chess and its basic mechanics and how, it's how skillfully it was crafted to be a simple game that yet had tons and tons of strategy heaped on top of it. I just need something a little bit more. And I think that, because I'm not the only one that thinks that way, that's the niche that a game like Eternal Kings is going to fill. Because it takes those solid mechanics of chess, but just adds so many other interesting thematic elements on top of it, as well as the high-quality artwork and the thematic elements as well. The fact that you can, if you know how the movement of chess works, you're part of the way there. But that's not all that this game has, and that's not going to get you to win any game of this either. You need to know what all your ability cards do. You construct the decks ahead of time. Now, I couldn't show you everything that's going to be in the final version, but obviously there's going to be lots and lots of different cards and different units and creatures and ability cards that you can use to construct both your army and your ability deck. So right off the bat, there's a whole other game before the game. You don't build an army in chess. That's just not there. But in this one you can, because you're using all these cards to the ability deck to manipulate your creatures out on the field. Your creatures have their own abilities. These are all the different things that it brings to that classic game. And while at the same time, your goal is just to take out the king. But it's so much more about deciding how you're going to run interference with your creatures, using their special abilities, using the ability cards that can manipulate the battlefield as well, is very, very important. The whole thing of flipping cards, flipping your creatures specifically, for their abilities as well, is something that you really need to keep in mind, because, yeah, you might get a really good ability out of it. I mean, even just the pawns allow you to draw cards. It's like, hey, that's great, but that's a one-time thing, and you're not going to be able to use it again for some time. So deciding when to use that and knowing that your opponent's going to have ability cards they can slam you with as well at any given moment, especially when you might have to make a critical move, leaving your opponent out there, leaving your unit out there like, all right, I'm going to make a go at it with my knight and see if I can take my opponent's queen, but not knowing what they're going to have in hand to maybe stifle that. If you can't take out your opponent's creature in one shot, they're just going to heal up, and then you're back where you started off, and you might be even more vulnerable. Again, these are all things that you might run into in a traditional game of chess, but not as clear. It's more clear-cut in that. It's just like, oh, I either make this move or I don't. There's no like luck involved, and there's just that one basic level of strategy. Whereas in a game like Eternal Kings, you're taking that and just heaping these other layers on top of it. And you have to master all of these layers in order to win with any kind of consistency. So there is luck here in the sense that maybe you don't draw the ability card that you need desperately. But on the other hand, you do have total control over your units. You have control over when they use their limited abilities. You have these limited resources that you have control over. And so you have to make as best of use of them as you can. And you can always see everything that your opponent has, and they can always see everything that you have. But it's deciding how best to use those creatures and abilities that is ultimately going to win out, and what adds so much more to the game than just regular chess. So, if any of these things appeal to you, if you actually are a fan of chess, you could be a fan of chess and still potentially like this game as well. I don't want to make it sound like that. But if you are a fan of chess, or if you said, oh, chess was always interesting, but just like me, you just needed more, or if you know someone who does fall into either of those categories, you don't have to take my word for any of this. You can go to the official Kickstarter project page and find out tons more information than I could possibly tell you here, and hopefully consider backing the project. You can follow the link in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. That is Eternal Kings from designer Rolando Isa. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, for supporting our sponsors. Take care.